Tuesday, March 3rd. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, a little bit of Mouse Guard and then Quake Live.
Let's do this.
As I said this morning about the weather, I tire of this bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just...
It is so cold. I mean, I did the Rochester walk this morning. I have not done the Rochester walk in a while. And I do not want to have to do it again.
I see like the thermometer in my car every morning, and this morning it only said negative 11 C, and there was another time this year where it was less than that. It was like negative 13 or 14 C. So it wasn't the coldest it's been all year, but it was starting to get warm. It was like 40-something degrees for a little while. So the fact that it got cold again is just like, I'm really not too happy, and I just feel like total shit. And if it doesn't get spring soon, I'm just gonna quit and get in a plane, and I'm gonna go buy like a $5,000 house in the desert because, you know, houses are cheap, deserts are warm. Why would I stay here?
Just quit your job.
I mean, I could just take all my money and I could afford to live in the desert and pay for only an internet connection and electricity and food and own a little desert house and live there for like quite a few years. I feel like maybe I should.
You can go one step further and just squat somewhere.
Yeah, but that's a little... I want to live in a nice desert house.
Now, buy a really nice Winnebago.
I can't... The Winnebago costs more than a desert shack.
Fine, buy a really crappy Winnebago.
I'd rather if a desert shack is nice.
I don't know. It wouldn't be that nice. Depends.
I'd make it myself. It'd be very nice.
So you're gonna get some. You're gonna play Quake on that high latency satellite internet connection.
No. You know, because the desert shack is so cheap, I can afford to have a T1 brought out. There's telephone pretty much anywhere, so why not? I'm not talking about like the middle of Death Valley. I'm talking about, a tiny little Nevada town or something. Somewhere between like Vegas and Reno, you know.
But not that long ago, we were at the New York Comic Con, and we did a bunch of stuff there, and we have a few things still pending from that. But one thing I did was I talked to Luke Crane a bit about the Mouse Guard role-playing game. Now, Mouse Guard, we played it a little bit. We're going to do a show on it once we've kind of fully grokked all that it is and kind of really pushed it to its limits. So we're really trying to avoid our commentary on it just yet.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, Mouse Guard is a comic book made by David Peterson that I was a huge fan of and have been reading for a very long time. Luke Crane, you probably know, is the creator of Burning Wheel, and I like his RPGs.
Yep.
And way back, when we did that first Luke Crane interview, right before that interview, like literally 1 minute before we started that interview, I was sitting in the lobby of what was that hotel? It was like
wherever UberCon was.
Yeah, it was in near the Meadowlands, right? In some hotel at UberCon, whatever number it was, and it was me, Luke Crane, Drunken Rim. Right,
I wasn't drunk yet.
No, Tor Olavsrud and these guys from Archaea Studio Press, and we were sitting there, and they were talking, and once I realized who they were, I was like, oh man, because Mouse Guard was brand new back then.
And Scott and I were
Makes you realize how old Mouse Guard is. It's only in its like second series.
We were not yet the epic podcasters that we are.
We're not.
Basically, we had badgered Luke Crane.
That's where we left the power supply to the compressor.
Yeah, the old compressor.
Right.
But we had badgered Luke Crane this whole con, like, can we interview? Can we interview? And finally, he was like, all right, after the con, you can interview me before I go home.
No, I think he liked being interviewed. He wanted to.
He did, but he was definitely...
And that interview's definitely, he's definitely very pleased with the attention that we have managed to attract for him.
But it was definitely we were some punk kids who bothered him to get an interview for something, and then...
Yeah, but, so that was like the time Burning Empires had just come out then, and he was talking to the Archaea Studio Press guys, and he was like, hey, Mouse Guard RPG, if... if you guys want me to do it, I'll do it. And then, sure enough, here it is. How many years later? There it is. Mouse Guard RPG.
But Luke Crane had quite a bit to say about it. I recorded this just at the New York Comic Con, so there's some background noise, but I'm pretty sure you can understand what he's got to say.
Hey, Mouse fans. Mouse Guard role-playing game it's meant to be a simple, instructive role-playing game that does not ignore complexity and fighting and the things that we liked about D&D or the things that we ignored about D&D when we played it when we were kids. The mechanic for the game, I mean, aside from all the color about, what your fur color is and your cloak color and all that cool stuff, the mechanic for the game that really locks it in nice and tight is called nature. And your nature determines how mousy you are or how not mousy you are. And your nature ranges from 0 to 7, and the higher your nature is, the better off you are. You can power your nature into doing all sorts of things a normal mouse could not. But if your nature gets too high, you become too mousy, too mouse-like. You embody the animal too much, right? So you can, the wolf will never catch you. You'll always outrun the wolf. You'll always dig your burrow better, but you become too mouse-like. So that gets you a trait. You basically, your nature hits 7, that gets you a crazy mousy trait. When your nature hits 0, you become too unmouse-like, and you get a trait like Kelenaw's the best example. The old dude, the black axe, whatever. He, at some point in that character's past, he hit nature 0 and he retired. He became unmouse-like and became he got the old fur trait basically when he hit 0, because he's just like, forget it, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's how he's introduced. He's like, I don't want to be in the mouse guard anymore. I'm something else now. And we were like, wait, how do we make that into a mechanic in the game? And Kelenaw, interestingly enough, isn't a sample character because he's the guy you have to play toward. You can't make him at the start. You have to gun toward playing him and make that history in play. Character creation is questionnaire based. You answer questions about your mouse, where he was born, who his parents were, what they did, what his mentor did in the guard, what skills he picked up in the guard, what skills he picked up on the road in the guard, and like any kind of natural talents he has. And that's pretty much it. And so that's for like your skills, and then you do the same thing. Like, what traits did your parents have? What did you inherit from them? What didn't you inherit from them? What did you get on your own? So it's a questionnaire, and we try to, like all Burning Wheel games, we try to give you a sense of the history of the character in character creation. We worked really hard to make sure that the Mouse Guard game, out of the box, without any effort from the players, plays out the comics, fall and winter, right? Where you're scraping and scrapping to survive, you're fighting against insane animals, owls and snakes and badgers. You're the representatives of this organization on which the safety of all mouse kind, rests, right? And so there's a lot of pressure, and your missions are all high stakes. Your life is always on the line. When you open that book and you start reading that book, you are going to play a Mouse Guard story, period. So one of the mechanics that we built into the game, to reinforce the mousiness of it, was something called the natural order. And we have this beautiful little chart that David Peterson, the artist and author, designed for us that shows, all the way from insects to, and mice and snakes and bats and birds and badgers and wolves and foxes and bears and moose, like this great scaled chart, which honestly is an homage to Call of Cthulhu. Anybody who knows what I'm talking about knows what I'm talking about. And there's that great chart of you go all the way from Bayaki to Men all the way up to Cthulhu, and they show you the size comparison. Well, one of the problems in that for me is that Cthulhu just has a set number of hit points. Yeah, he's got special powers, blah blah blah, but he's got hit points, which means he can be dealt with. Not in Mouse Guard. So you can only affect, you can only fight with creatures that are one higher step than you or lower. On the natural order. So mice can fight with snakes and weasels, right? And and have a chance. But beyond that, foxes and wolves and bears, mice run. That's it. That's what you do when you fight a fox or a weasel or whatever, or a fox or rather a wolverine. You run. And if you want to confront those creatures, you have to use science. You have to use warfare, right? No stabby for them. You have to use your smarts. So by doing this, by creating this natural order and saying this is how it is, and these rules are immutable and unbreakable, we've given shape to the universe. We've planted the poles of the Mouse Guard world and said, okay, this is how they live, and this is what they can deal with, and this is what they can't. And it immediately sets players' wheels spinning. It's really, really effective. Animals in Mouse Guard are animals. Mice are special, right? They have their foil, right? Mice are special, and they have their darker cousin. They have weasels, which they're not really cousins, but mustelids and rodents are two different things. I researched all this. Anyway, but you have your protagonist peoples, and then you have your antagonist peoples. You have your orcs, right? Weasels are the orcs, so they're also smart, but they're smart for evil. But everything else in the mouse guard world are animals. They don't have any intelligence. They don't have any goals, any aims. They have no civilization, no society. And this creates a great sense of horror when you realize that the raccoon doesn't want to talk to you, it wants to eat you. And there's no amount of negotiation or communication. A lot of players want to talk to the raccoons, and there's a little talk to animal skill, and that's fine, because, we're all animals, whatever. But the raccoon's pretty much going I talked to David Peterson about this. I was like, all right, if Liam and the snake from Fall, if they could talk, what would the snake be saying? And Dave was like, yeah, pretty much be saying I'm going to eat you. In the game, the animals don't have stats for negotiation or anything like that. Animals have their nature, and they obey the laws of their nature, period. And that's because they're animals, and it's great. Weasels are David Peterson's orcs, essentially, for this setting. They're the generic bad guys, but the cool thing is that one weasel versus one mouse, it's no contest. The weasel is a mouse killer, and there's lots of weasels, not as many weasels as mice, but they're a genocidal threat to all of mouse kind. And so I was okay with them as villains. I'm like, okay, these guys are kind of badass. So we did a whole, we statted out just about every, weasel we could think of. So I think it comes to, 8 different weasels. But they have stats and skills like mice have stats and skills. So unlike animals don't have stat skills, they just have nature. If I had my druthers, I would want gamer families to play Mouse Guard. I want mom or dad to come home to their 7, 8, 9-year-old kids and be like, all right, we've been waiting for you to get old enough, we've been waiting for a game to be good enough, and here we go. You are going to be role-playing gamers. That would be my ideal. As far as I've played, with kids, Burning Wheel and Mouse Guard and whatnot, they've never had any trouble grokking the rules. Only people who have trouble grokking the rules for Mouse Guard are hardcore gamers.
But anyway, things of the day. We play games a lot, and the one problem with playing games a lot, really being into gaming, is that you'll often demystify games for yourself. I used to be very excited when I found glitchy parts of Simon's Quest. I find a weird area and I'd be all excited and exploring it. It was this crazy thing, but now I know exactly why that happens, and it's no longer interesting to me.
I remember one time, I think there was a babysitter at my house, and I was playing Mega Man 2, and I was fighting Bubble Man.
I remember the Bubble Man story.
And then the door that, I was jumping up to shoot Bubble Man, and the door opened, and I went backwards, and the game totally fucked up. So I went back through the door, and I was in Bubble Man's room, but everything was screwed up and invisible, and I basically messed around in that room to figure out what the fuck. I thought I had found some amazing secret for a long time.
Yep. Didn't you found every invisible block and
Yeah, it was just, basically it was just a glitch. It wasn't actually some crazy secret, but it was a glitch that happened to appear like a secret. Sort of like Metroid. Only in Metroid the glitches become secrets because you glitch them so much that you actually get from one place in the map to another place in the map.
Yeah, of course, more often than not you just end up somewhere unsavable, and then you die.
Yeah, pretty. But people who are good at doing the the secret Metroid jump glitch jump wall jump tricks, they can pretty much get anywhere they want, and they know where all the spots are, and they can go right to the end of the game and all sorts of shit. So,
but anyway, if you want to talk about demystification to the absolute extreme, right here is a website that diagrams everything you could possibly want to know. Not just that, it diagrams everything about Pac-Man. The exact logic the ghosts use, exactly how they move, every single thing.
Well, that only applies to the original arcade Pac-Man, right?
Yes.
That doesn't apply to Pac-Man Verse or any other releases.
Well, we don't know. We'd have to analyze them in similar detail to find out.
But he's just analyzing the original real deal arcade one, right?
But this is right down to the speed of Pac-Man and the ghost and how it changes over time based on how many pellets you've taken. The logic the ghosts use to figure out where to go is pretty cool. And in case you were a gamer who always suspected but could never prove it, yes, the ghosts did have different personalities. They all had completely different logic.
Uh-huh.
And because it made sense that the red guy was always coming after you and that sort of thing. But you can see their paths. And the cool thing is what they would always do is every second they would be calculating a spot, and they were trying to get to that spot. But the spot they're trying to get to is changing all the time based on where Pac-Man is. So someone made a mod of the game where you can see the dots that show where the ghosts are trying to get to. And there's
That
some
must make
videos
it
of that.
real easy to win because you just.
But remember, they're reacting to you in real time, so you know where they're trying to get, but that dot is jumping all over the place as you move.
Yeah, but I mean, it still would make it a lot easier to win because you'd know, like, you'd be going one way and you'd realize you were going to be trapped. You know, sometimes you'd be going down a hallway and, like, a ghost will look like he's going to hit you. So you turn around and you end up dying, but actually that ghost turned a different way, you know, and you could have made it if you would have gone
You know
that
what?
way.
If you read this, you can figure out which ghost is almost always going to turn away.
Oh, that's good stuff.
It is good stuff. So
Yeah, the thing is, you got to, even so, you'd have to think fast. You have to be like, orange ghost, keep going, or blue ghost, turn around, and, you know, that kind of stuff.
But it's interesting that a game that appears so simple when you play it, and a lot of times people will think it's very random because they're not that, they don't understand how games work, or they're not good at them, or they're a kid or something. But the game, as simple as it is, had a lot of really interesting emergent behavior that appeared. But if you actually analyze it fully, it's all still completely 100% deterministic.
No, well, it's a computer. It can't be non-deterministic unless it's broken.
Well, I mean, you could use random numbers to seed behavior and that sort of
Yes,
thing.
but the random numbers are deterministic. They're not real random numbers.
Well, Scott, what if you used
Especially not in a weak-ass old arcade
What if
machine.
you used a true or semi-true random number generator, like, say, a thermal delta switch?
Well, that's a different story. But then that would create possibly... You could actually... That would be really interesting if you had a true random number generator or something like that, and you used it in some sort of game. You could perhaps make a game that is unwinnable.
Well, it's not that hard to make a game that's unwinnable.
Well, I know.
Mario starts, there's no floor. That's it.
I mean, an interesting unwinnable game.
So it's like that Cat Mario
Basically,
mod
it would be a
game.
game where there is no optimal strategy because you're going against true randomness. But
But Scott, you can effectively get true randomness. I say effectively with dice. We have that.
Yeah, dice are pretty random.
Actually, in World War II how they generated one-time pads in Britain for the military to use?
Dice.
Old ladies rolling bingo things, basically.
Oh, bingo balls?
Yeah.
No, that's not bad.
They'd roll something, pull out a number, write the number down, roll something, pull out another number, write the number down.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That works.
So do you have a thing of the day?
Oh, yeah. So I was poking around looking at, game engines, right? Because, I was talking to, like, Water is Poison. We're like, hey, let's make, like, a Half-Life mod. All these punk kids do it. We can do it, too, right? We're professionals. And, of course,
Well.
you got it. There's a long story behind that, but that wasn't going to work out. So I started poking around, and I'm like, there has to be some sort of open source game engine that's all awesome, like.
Well, see, I was about to say there are plenty, but then you said awesome.
Yeah. So every game engine out there seems to either be limited, not awesome. I mean, there's zillions of them out there, right? But they're either crap, limited, cost money. Pretty much all of them are flawed in some way. They're in a bad language that no one wants to use. Like there's one that's actually kind of okay called Joger, J-Ogre. It's a Java thing that like gives you a pretty standard
Java.
Yeah, it gives you a pretty standard MVC framework for, making sort of simple, multiplayer games. Like if you want to make board games, like this handles like already you don't have to do any work. It does like, the lobbies and the joining and the whole thing, and it just works. I tried it. It totally works. But the thing is, you can't make anything that looks nice because it's all swing GUIs. So you'd have to basically do a whole shit ton of work to make anything that looks cool, or it just looks like, Java GUIs. But anyway, in the course of that, I found this thing called love, right? And
You found love.
not love as in the emotion, but love as in the game engine called Love. And Love, the game engine, isn't really, it's pretty limited, right? It falls into the limited category. You can't make a multiplayer game with this, right? You can't make, you can't make like really fancy games with this. But what it is you can make games using a language called Lua, L-U-A. And for people who don't know, Lua is like this really sort of simple programming language, and a lot of a lot of things will use it as the configuration. Like if you use Lighty, the web server, like all the configuration files are written in Lua. So it's meant to be very human readable and very easy to do. And if you use Love, you can very easily make sort of simple 2D games. Like if you want to make, something like, just something, one of those like little indie demo kind of things, like something like Passage. You could make Passage in Love. You could make, what's the one with the chandelier and the...
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Remember the one where you trap the chandelier on the monster? It's just to fight the boss. There was like that quirky little indie game.
I remember it vaguely.
Yeah. But anyway, you can make that, anything like that. A cute, small game you can make in Love really, really easily.
So when are we going to see the first Scott production?
I don't know. But the point is that if you have an idea for some like sort of cute little 2D game, you could smack that thing out in Love in like, less than a day, like pretty easily, depending on how, real quick. So, if someone wants to make like a platform game that's like, just one screen, something like Line Rider, you could probably make, and anything along those lines. You could probably make a tower defense, but it'd be a little difficult.
I don't know. Tower defense, it seems like it had this high rise, and I feel like it's a dying genre already.
Yeah.
I mean, I played like the last 10 that I've seen just briefly, and they were all like exactly the same, if not worse.
Well, it's pretty much they sort of try to differentiate themselves by changing superficial things without changing any fundamental things.
Yeah, so you shoot like a zombie, or you shoot a...
Well, it's like some of them are like, okay, you can upgrade these things with gems. And another one's like, okay, you can combine the gems together. And another one is like, all right, you don't actually upgrade anything. You just put towers next to each other, and which towers are adjacent to each other changes the towers themselves. And they do stuff like that.
Maybe I think that's part of the reason why I like the old desktop tower defense so much, was that it kind of did away with skinning and theme, really, and it was just a tower defense.
No, it had a theme. The theme was it's your desk.
But none of the things made much sense in that regard.
It was things you were drawing on your desk with a pencil.
That was the theme?
You can see it. It's desktop tower defense.
Oh, yeah,
the
but
background is a desk.
But the structures were basically just little blobs.
Well, that's what you're doodling.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of weak.
Right, that's the theme of desktop tower defense. It's literally desktop tower defense.
But what I'm saying is that the theme was like barely there and didn't affect the game.
What are you talking about? The theme was incredibly strong. Everything's drawn all pencily, right? The background is a picture of the top of a desk.
Okay, so it had a background. The rest, it wasn't really drawn sketchily. Do I have to pull up screenshots of it again?
Go look at it. You'll
Yeah.
see it. I guess I can't believe you didn't know this already. This is like, it was obvious from the moment I first played it. The theme is very strong. Anyway.
All right, I argue that the theme is weak, but we digress.
Anyway, so yeah, if you want to make a little tiny game, you can get some love.
Mm-hmm.
It's free and open source and all that, whatnot.
So for the last many years, there's been this kind of FPSs have been in a state. You hear us complain about FPSs all the time, but just recently, this gigantic monolith has been dropped amidst the Halo players.
Yeah, I mean, basically what happened is, the FPSs were pretty much all id Software. It was Wolfenstein, Doom, Quake, right? And that was what the FPS was. And then, other FPSs came around. You had the GoldenEye, Half-Life, and Halo were pretty much like the big three. That sort of an Unreal Tournament, not so much. It was sort of off to the side. It was always like a second fiddle. But those three came along and sort of changed FPSs, and Counter-Strike especially. It's like, okay, no more of the, deathmatch, no more of the really fast Twitch gameplay. Now we're going to have a slow game. It's all about being slow and crafty, and it's all, you got to reload your weapons, and it's not about Twitch. It's about which path you're taking and can you aim and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I would argue more that it's much simpler than that. It was just that consoles became the primary means of game playing.
Well, that was later, though. I mean, I think that the old school FPS died before the console, because Counter-Strike was there for a few years, killing off Quake before Halo came along.
But at the same time, Counter-Strike is still pretty old school. I mean, it's still a difficult, awesome FPS.
Yeah, but
if you don't have the raw aiming and maneuvering FPS skills, you can't play Counter-Strike.
That's true, but I guess Counter-Strike's sort of the in-between. It's sort of like, but it's definitely not, it's not Quake. It's not the same. It's not old school. It's semi-old school.
I don't know, it's not that, I mean, the only difference between it and, say, like Action Quake team play was that Action Quake team play was well, I don't know, 3 or 4 times faster.
That's what I'm saying. The speed makes it, it's just one, you think it's just one factor, the speed, but no, that one factor makes like this entire world of difference.
But just to simplify, there was this combination of one, consoles, which have very weak controls compared to a PC for FPSs, and 2, this drive toward realism and trying to make games, FPSs at least, very realistic and gritty. And the more realistic you make an FPS, it's kind of like the difference between Soul Calibur and Bushido Blade. Bushido Blade's a lot more realistic in one regard, but it makes it a completely different game as a result.
A bad game.
And for a long time, we've really wanted to bring back the old school FPSs. I mean, I love Natural Selection, and it's doing okay. I mean, the community's still pretty strong. And I love Tribes 2, but there's just no way to make the Tribes 2 community come back again. It's just impossible.
I mean, they're trying recently. They do like the Tribes Revival or whatever, but it's not coming on as strong as it needs to. And the major problem there is that Tribes is a game that needs, servers that have like 40 people on them. And, it's just a game that doesn't work unless a shit ton of people are playing it. So basically, we're sitting here and we got some FPSs to play, but we're missing the old school flavor. And it's sort of like, you have this genre, FPS, and within the genre, there are flavors, the slow tactical and the military and the team-based one with vehicles, right? And you got all these, subgenres, but the subgenre of really fast, twitch, just fucking kill everyone sort of died out. I mean, there was Quake 4, but no one who plays Quake 4.
No one plays Quake 4.
No one plays Quake 4, right? So much to our surprise, right? Quake Live comes. It's been around for a while, but the beta opened up like a week ago, I think, something like that. Not too long ago, the Quake Live beta opened up, and I was curious. So we go in, and it's like, okay, Quake in the web browser. What are they gonna do here?
And it's not even, I mean, you can't say it's a web plugin. It's basically just you download Quake and then it interfaces through the web browser to like set up your games.
Yeah, basically instead of installing Quake as its own application, it's just installs as a browser plugin, but you're still just installing Quake. It's not, you can, if you want to, keep the Quake window inside your browser window, thus making it really hard to see instead of playing full screen.
Now, the end result is that this is brilliant. I mean, it's Quake 3. It's an old game, and they brought it back in this capacity, but all they've really done is solve the problem I've been having for years of, I like old school FPSs. I like difficult FPSs. I want other people to play these FPSs, but those games are so inaccessible, and even if they are accessible as a game, on the meta perspective, there's no way to get a game of it going. Do you know how hard it is to like get a bunch of Halo kids to download Quake 3, install it, connect to my server with an IP address, and then play a deathmatch?
Yeah, I mean, people, you're used to playing Halo and you're used to playing games on Steam, right? Where you have sort of easy, there's a list of servers and you just click on one and you're playing and they handle that for you. You don't realize that Quake 1, 2, 3, all those old games, even Quake 3, there was no really good server matchup thing. There was no list of servers.
I used to have literally this text file I saved to my desktop, and it listed all the Quake 1 and Quake 2 servers I played on and which ones were good. I played on like Bunny's low ping only.
Yeah, people would use things like, GameSpy and Kali in order to, get server lists. It was sort of like they would have separate programs to list the servers. Then they would double click on one in the list and that would launch the game separately.
Well, if you were smart, you just used the CLQ.
Yes, but you get my point is that it wasn't easy to get a game of these things going. You had to find a server. You had to be in the know. And normal people couldn't do it. I mean, normal people could go to the store, buy Quake 3, install it, and play, and they get a LAN game going on pretty easily. But to play an internet game required, effort, extra effort.
For a long time, up to this point, there have been a lot of arguments all over the internet. I won't say our forums, because it's everywhere. People like us who play these old FPSs, and then kids who say, yeah, they're not so different, they're not so hard, my games are fine, Halo's great. And I mean, those games are good games, but they never really seem to understand just how difficult these old games are and how difficult it is to be good at them. And not even good, how difficult it is to kill a single person.
How difficult it is to get a weapon, even though they're lying around all over the place, and how difficult it is to not get killed.
Let alone
instantly.
How fast they go. And Quake 3 is not even the fastest. Quake 3 is slow. It just... we're never gonna get Quake 2 back.
No,
I've given up on playing like Mega TF with people again.
Yeah,
I think those games, they're dinosaurs. They're extinct.
When
I
you
admit
kids
that.
go to play Quake Live and you see how fast it is, right? Remember that was actually when Quake 3 came out. Everyone who had played Quake 1 and 2 was like, wow, why is Quake 3 all slow? And so Quake Live is Quake 3. It's slow. Quake 1 and 2 are crazy fast. Correct speed. Quake 3 is slow. But yeah.
This has finally been solved because all over the internet now we have seen people, Halo kids, modern FPSers, posting in forums and saying things to the effect of, what the fuck? I can't get any kills. What's going on?
Yeah, and the thing I sort of realized, because I haven't played, Quake like for more than 5 minutes in a very long time, is that, how simple the game is compared to a lot of other FPSs. I mean, not even Tribes 2 or NS, but say Counter-Strike, right? In Counter-Strike, you've got buy menus, you've got reload, you've got crouch, right? You know what Quake has? It's got change weapon, shoot, jump, move, and zoom in. That's pretty much all it has.
Yeah, I mean,
those are all the controls.
There are a couple of items, but
yeah,
matter.
There's a use button that you push maybe like once a century.
You don't even have to click anything to open doors. Doors just open.
Yeah, there is literally like the controls are so primitive. I mean, I guess you move the mouse to aim, of course, right? But that's it. That's all the controls of Quake 3. Yet the game is so incredibly difficult compared to games with other controls. It's like you can learn how to play in like a minute, because the controls are so few. But if you play against anyone who knows what they're doing at all, you're just going to get killed instantly because the game is so fast and requires such reflexes and such, I guess this is a little bit of learning curve and learning what all the weapons do and learning what all the items do, you got to know that green health lets you go above 100 and yellow health doesn't, and red armor is better than yellow armor.
Yeah, the thing is, you don't even need to know that stuff too well. You pretty much just have to be able to move, shoot, and react quickly to things.
Yeah, that'll get you, far enough to actually pick up some of these items.
Yep. But I mean, I think this made me playing this again because I'd played Quake 3 and Quake 2 and all these games recently a whole bunch, but now that I'm playing them for real with other people on a regular basis, I mean, I've played Quake almost every day for the past week for like hours. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to remember all the things about all these old FPSs that just don't happen anymore. Like the precision required to aim is ludicrous for most kids now.
I mean, the railgun, right? The railgun pretty much kills most people in one hit.
If you
not
hit
two.
them in the head.
Yeah, but I mean, it's really dangerous. I mean, and the thing is, most of the people you're fighting are, it's rare that you come across someone with full health, right? So if you hit them with it, they're probably going to die, right? And it actually goes through people. So if everyone lines up and you shoot it, you can shoot it straight through them and kill like 3 or 4 people in one shot. You have to pretty much aim exactly on them, or it's a laser that pretty much as soon as you push the button, it fires in that one spot and that's it.
It's a railgun.
Yeah. And it's really, really hard to hit anyone with it unless they're standing still like a doofus.
Plus, if you're playing a duel, I mean, these guys are moving 3 or 4 times faster than like Team Fortress, and they're further away, and the spaces are bigger. And if it's a full health like duel, you've got to hit him in the head.
Yeah.
His tiny little head.
And if it's a duel, right, and there's less people on the map, right? So if it's like a 16-player deathmatch, all right, everyone's running around getting shot at constantly. If it's a duel, one-on-one, people have time to go around and get armor and get all kinds of weapons before you bump into them, right?
Well, unless you play one of the old school duel maps, but none of those seem to be in here yet.
Yeah. So if they got time to go run around and grab all this stuff, by the time you meet them, you're going to need to hit them a whole lot before they hit you a whole lot.
Of course, you should have picked all this stuff up, too.
Yeah, but, there's only one red armor, so if one guy gets the red, you're probably only going to get the yellow.
Nah, you can avoid him until it comes, and then you can grab it, too.
I guess, depending on the map and such.
Plus, if you're playing one-on-one, you should be playing on a duel map where that's all taken care of.
Yeah, that's true also. If it's a good duel map. I haven't actually played any duels. I've been mostly playing death matches.
Yeah, there's just some sort of visceral fun about a death match. I mean, I forgot almost.
I actually won one. It was crazy.
About this time in my life. I've won like 10. It's not that. Of course, I played more than you.
I only won. I almost won one just now. I was down by like 2.
It's amazing. You see the skill cap difference in a game like Team Fortress, where once you get good enough, like no one can be better than you because everyone's pretty much at this equal level. But in Quake, you'll see someone where 5 minutes have gone by, they've got 40 frags. The next person under them has 39. Person under them has 7. And then there's a whole bunch of 7s, and then everyone else has like -2.
Yeah. I mean, you can always sort of tell if someone's really good. I mean, like, if there's someone on the server who's really good, right, they're just going to win because they'll get the railgun and hit everyone with every single shot, right? But if everyone's sort of equal, I remember the game really comes down to the fight over the quad damage, because if you get the quad damage, then that gives you the upper hand, you know, for like about 30 seconds to hose enough people down to get like 5 or 6 frags, and that's what's going to give you the win.
But I'm having such visceral, simple fun from playing an FPS where it's a deathmatch. Deathmatch is almost gone, and now it's back. A straight-up deathmatch.
Yeah, all they had to do, right, was they took the same exact game, they barely changed it, it's just pure Quake, right? And they made it so that you can get at it easily. You don't need IP addresses, you don't need any sort of funky user interface, right? They put all the server matchups and all the, you know, user profiles and all the friend system and the whole thing in the web browser. And then as soon as you click, you know, join game, it opens up and goes full screen or whatever with the plugin. And that's it.
It's a game where you're trying to get frags and not get gibbed.
Yep.
Though, honestly, the best thing, I haven't been able to play FPSs like this for a long time, but, you know, back in the day, like playing in clans and being really, like, into this sort of thing and, like, practicing. I mean, these are FPSs where if you want to be good, you've got to sit down with people and practice. Like,
yeah, I mean,
basically do, like, shooting drills.
Yeah, well, look at a dude like Fatality, right? That dude freaking practiced, like, almost all day, every day. You know, he trained like he was an athlete, you know? And that's why he was as good as he is.
But this is, I mean, I used to do anything I could that was within the rules to get an edge. And back in the Quake 2 days, I always played with an FOV of 120. So in a normal FPS, by default, you have a field of view of 90 degrees. So you see this 90-degree chunk out from the eyes of your model, and that's what you see.
Yep.
Now, you don't have any peripheral vision or anything, and that's just kind of the way FPSs were. But a lot of really hardcore people in the Quake 2 days would turn off all the textures or weaken all the textures or change the textures so everything was kind of bland, get a higher frame rate. And then they'd widen the FOV to like 110, 120, 130. This basically, if you watch someone play like that, or now with Quake Live, you can just do it and see. The whole world looks like a fishbowl, and it's incredibly disorienting if you're not used to it. But if you can get used to it, it gives you this gigantic edge over everyone else. You can see people behind you and turn and shoot them. It becomes a game of click on all the heads that are floating around the screen before they click on yours.
Yeah, well, if you've, you know, got a railgun, I mean, if you don't, you can't just click on the heads. You gotta maybe shoot a rocket at the feet. You know, maybe throw some, you know, lead them with the plasma rifle a bit.
The only thing that I'm missing that I feel like I should have are my offhand grenades, but I can live without that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, you can get the grenade launcher if you really want it.
It's not the same. There was something about throwing a grenade at a guy's feet, shooting a rocket, throwing another grenade, bouncing him off of the second grenade into the rocket.
Yeah, I think, you know, I guess they could put grenades in it, but, you know, I guess there weren't grenades in Quake 3, right? So why should there be?
I feel like they should leave it as is. I could foresee. I'll bet that
Plus, that sort of gets rid of the fact that it's this pure and simple game. You know, in terms of, you know, the game itself.
Well, what they could do, it'd be really interesting if they open this platform up to more games than just Quake 3. Like, what if they put Quake 2 and Quake 1 on there? There's no reason not to.
Well, I think this technically isn't Quake 3. It's Quake Live, right? They don't want to call it Quake 3.
Well, yeah, but it's Quake 3.
Yeah. I mean, there was an interview with Carmack, and he talked about, you know, stuff like, you know, if there were going to be mods on there and stuff like that. And I think they were talking about, like, you know, if they found maps from people that were really awesome, they would put them in there and stuff like that. So there's definitely going to be more content in there at the very least. You know, maybe more game modes. Because right now, they got a few game modes in there. They got CTF, they got Clan Arena.
Yeah, but they're all the, like, Quake 3 modes, and I'll admit...
I don't like any of those modes.
Back when they came out, everyone hated them. They were terrible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is, you know, they're keeping it simple, right? This isn't about, you know, revolutionizing FPS. It's
Even
about...
though I think it will in a small way because
Well, because it's taking the pure FPS and making it accessible to the masses.
they took an FPS that I played in high school and just re-released it without doing much to it, and it's already really popular.
It's in beta.
And
right?
it's in many ways it feels fresher than a lot of new FPSs because it's so different from most games that people play today. Even though it's a game from when I was in high school.
I know, right?
I bought Quake 3 when I was in high school.
I mean, you could do the same thing. I mean, think about, right? If you want to look for originality in video games, right? The old PC games is where, there were no genres in those olden days. Things like, Mule and StarCraft and, all these sorts of things totally defy genre completely. Like, those are the only games like those. That's it, right? So if you get games like those from the early PC days and bring them back, it's totally, it's super fresh because you haven't played anything like that since the olden days. And it's the same, even though FPSs as a whole are not fresh, right? This style of FPS is fresh. I mean, I could come out with like a Wolfenstein-like game today, right? Which is an FPS that primarily concentrates on, mazes and secrets and that sort of thing as opposed to, and downplays the shooting element. And it would be totally fresh if you like that sort of thing,
So maybe we should get the forum together and play some games. Find one of those empty servers on there.
Well, it's got a friend system, right? So just find out, who everyone else's name is. And
my name is Rim.
Yeah, you can guess what my name is. And then, add people to your friends list. It's pretty easy. And then when you're online, look in their friends for, who's playing and join. Now, the thing is, there's a skill matching system, and the skill matching system is pretty good. It's not like super perfect, but it's pretty good.
I love in the beginning, it pretty much puts you in and says, like, get as far as you can get and then enter the
And
portal.
it doesn't even tell you anything. It's just like, get as far as you can get in this room. And then when you can't get any further, go in the door.
It's great because first it's like, jump over this thing, and then rocket jump over this thing, and then bunny hop. Now, bunny hopping again is something that has been it's been taken out of a lot of FPSs, and all that kind of jumping, fiddly, almost glitchy stuff was taken out of modern FPSs for a lot of reasons. But, in Quake 1, it was clearly a glitch, but people used it. It was part of the game. Quake 2, it was less of a glitch, but it was still there. Quake 3, they coded it in because they knew people wanted it.
Yeah.
It was there on purpose.
Yep.
Think about how much the culture of FPSing has changed from the glitch that was popular is coded into the game to the sterile, ultra-realistic games we have today.
Yeah, I did the rocket jump. I didn't do the B-hop.
Well, the thing is, I think to fully do the B-hop, you got to start with a rocket.
Yeah, I tried to do the rockets, right? And what happened was I actually ran out of rocket. And then I also killed, you're invincible, so you couldn't kill yourself. But, I just ran out of rockets, and I said, fuck it, and I went in the door. So, but yeah, and then you sort of fight this bot, and I guess they sort of gauge how well you do against the bot, based on the bot's difficulty, which I think also changes.
A lot of people can't beat the bot.
Yeah, it's weird that people didn't beat the bot. I mean, like, I started fighting the bot, and it killed me a little bit, and I was like, oh, crap, and then I came back and beat it. But it was weird that people were like, yeah, the bot kicked my ass, and I was like, oh, that's too bad.
But pretty much anyone out there, if you have a Windows PC, Quake 3 came out when I was in high school. You can probably run Quake 3.
You can definitely run Quake 3. You could probably run this on a netbook, most likely. If it has any sort of 3D at all, like an integrated, cheap-ass, graphics chip, even an Intel integrated thing will play Quake 3.
There is absolutely no reason not to download Quake Live and play it. At least try it. Even if you don't like FPSs, or even if you don't like this kind of twitchy, deathmatch, gibbon FPS, you should play it at least once to see where we're coming from. This game is like the midpoint between my perfect FPS and a modern Halo FPS.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just glad that there is a type of game that was lost and now is found, and people can actually when I say, oh man, you don't know old school FPSs, I can't say, oh well, yeah, you're not actually gonna be able to play any of them to find out. Now I can say, here, you can at least go play Quake Live, and then you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yep, because nothing was worse than, nah, man, Quake 2 was so much better. Yeah, well, how do I play it? All right, well, first you got to pirate a copy of Quake 2. All right, you got that.
Well, no, it's open source, but even you got to pirate the data files.
Now, edit this text file.
Yeah, it's like, already, they're not going to do it. Even if you did it for them, when they went to configure their controls, and there were controls that configured that weren't in the control configuration menu.
Yep.
That'd be the end of it, right? So, but now, it's accessible, and it's going to be eventually out on the Mac and, the Linux, supposedly, and people everywhere are going to be able to play Quake together in happy times.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.